Hello there, and a very warm welcome to Chazingdra Chats, the show where we take a stroll through the life stories of people in the Pokémon community, discovering the 6 Pokémon on their dream team along the way. I'm Charlie Merriman, merry by name, merry by nature, otherwise known as Chazingdra, a host and commentator for the Pokémon Video Game Championship Series, and a content creator. This week, as every week, I very much hope my guest and I can make your day merry, because I have the pleasure of being joined by Adam Dorricott. Adam, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, and I will endeavour to make people's day merry as best I can with this conversation.
I'm sure you will. You're off to a good start already,
Yep.
Adam. Very good. Adam, or Doz, as I know you're affectionately known sometimes. For anyone not familiar with you, can you give a brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, as mentioned, I'm Adam. I go by Doz, or in certain kind of apps where my username was stolen, I've had to pivot to Dozalon or Dosmond, but they're all me, definitely all me. For 7 years, I was actually an official commentator for the video game. So I did that between 2017 and I finished up in 2023. And then decided to make a jump and move into the production side. So for the people who do see me at shows or regionals, that's why I'm actually working there, just in a very different role.
Yeah, and I can't wait to take a deeper dive into all of the shifts that went on during that. Dosmond, what is Dosmond just like Desmond, but Dosmond?
It was just a name that a friend made a variety of.
Right.
And I think I was signing up for something and one of them was taken and I just remembered him saying it and I thought, yeah, that sounds good. We'll try that one.
Yeah, and that Dozalon, similar, just...
Same kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're both actually from my same friend who just
Okay.
changes people's names, yeah. So
Yeah.
Jack's been determining my username for probably 15 years now, yeah.
A trailblazing friend. And yeah, ships in the night, Adam. We never got the opportunity to cast together, but maybe at some point. Who knows? We'll see.
Well, we briefly did at EUIC.
True, yeah.
On the watch along.
Casual stream, yes, we were. It was like casting light, I guess. So that's how Adam and I have met each other. We've met backstage at events, EUIC this year and EUIC last year. And it's just a surreal moment for me, Adam, because, of course, years ago, I would watch your casting on some of the streams, and now, bit of a role reversal.
Yeah, no, we saw each other at EUIC, and I sort of, I will admit to the viewers, I did mention it to Charlie. I was like, how's your guest list looking for the next next little while? And it sort of all fell into place after that.
Well, and as I said to you, you've been on my list for a very long time, so thrilled to have you. So, shall we do this, Adam?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Alrighty, let's get to know you a bit better and your 6 Dream Team Pokemon. So what we're starting with, your early years and video games and your life in Britain.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, I do live in the US now. Obviously, I grew up in the United Kingdom as well, but I've been playing video games on and off for a long time. Growing up, I was not allowed the forbidden PlayStation or PlayStation 2. Those were consoles that would distract me too much from school, or, the games on there just weren't really appropriate for me. But I was a diehard Game Boy kid for a very long time. That was the first one I got. I got a Game Boy Color. We had it before we were going on a long trip, so I had to get all the accessories, the little light that plugs in. And I really played Game Boy games only for probably until I was about 16 or 17. So nearly 10 years, I'd say, before I got a PlayStation 2 and moved up to traditional console gaming. Always loved playing the Game Boy. Had so many different games, and I still go back and play them now, but I think that kind of gave me more of a grounding that this is my kind of thing. I liked those style of games a little bit more. Obviously, in the late 90s, a certain pair of games came out, Pokemon Red and Blue, and my brother, who's actually my half-brother, came to visit. So when he came, Dad actually got both of us, got one each, and so we split Red and Blue, as I think many siblings have to do, even though now I feel like people are just buying both. But back then you got one, and you really, really enjoyed it. And that was just sort of my thing for a long time. I mean, Red and Blue came out. I remember picking up Gold when that came out, which I did recently find the box for my Pokemon Gold. Is it flat and in bad condition? Yes, but it's still a box, and I still have it. And that was me for a long time. I was really focused on school growing up. Would come home, play the Game Boy, but then started to meet other friends who would play the Game Boy as well. Then we, as we grew up, we had the Game Boy Advance and then the Game Boy Micro. Those were the people I became friends with. Just people who are also into those fun, simple games as well.
And so, as it graduated onto the Game Boy Advance and so on, did Pokemon fast become your favourite of those Game Boy games?
I think so. I think I mean, I stuck with Gold for a really, really long time. That was just one of those games that I would play religiously. I'd restart it, try it again, and I really started putting in the time with that. And it was always something really nice with my brother, being able to see him when he came down and say, okay, what are you doing? What have you got? Let's see what you've got on your team. And that was just a really nice way for us to sort of bond in that way, because we didn't spend much time together. Only saw him maybe once or twice a year because he lived the other end of the country. That does mean, though, there's 4-hour car rides, which you can really grind out some serious Pokemon on those. There was another couple of games I dabbled in. I remember the Bugs Life game was a popular one, the platformer. Somehow I managed to dodge a lot of Mario, but also like the Zelda Game Boy games, huge on those as well. So I love that kind of puzzling situation instead of the traditional like shooter or something like you'd get on the PlayStation.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I was going to ask. You weren't allowed a PlayStation or PlayStation 2, but how much of you actually wanted one at the time? Because presumably the more you played the Game Boy, the more your love for those games grew.
Well, my brother had one, and he'd bring his PlayStations down, or up, actually, based on the way we were positioned. And I'd play them for a little bit, but then at the end of the day, I'd sort of be like, oh, well, I'd like one, and there was a couple of things we liked to play, the sports games and things that we could play together. But really, I just wanted to sit down and play my Game Boy. That was just sit quietly, play Game Boy with him, have him help me with some of the puzzles and stuff. I did end up, like I say, getting one and, played it pretty heavily for a little while after that. Sort of took a step back from the Game Boy, but not really that it wasn't a big focus. I was really into school. I had a PC as well. I did some PC gaming. I firmly believed I could stay up late playing Game Boy or the PC on the condition that when my dad came in, or to check I was asleep, I firmly believed if I just sat really still in the dark, I wouldn't get caught. But the problem is with those old monitors, the PC screens, the old CRTs would have a glow to them, and the Game Boy, he can hear it, right? You can hear the clicking of the buttons, so it didn't really work, and I used to get in a lot of trouble for that.
I admire the commitment. No, I admire the... It's almost one of those, if I can't see you, you can't see me things.
That was the logic, yeah.
Didn't work out, but oh well. I love the shout out to the amount of time you spent on Pokemon Gold as well. I am a Gen 2er myself. I started with Red and Blue, like you, but I don't know, I think it was just that age sweet spot of when Gold and Silver came out. And I imagine it was a similar thing for you. Fantastic. It's time to discover what's going to be the first Pokemon on your dream team. So, as a reminder, everyone, the way this works... Adam has chosen these Pokemon in advance. The aim is not to build the most competitively viable team in any way. It's just the Pokemon that are most special to Adam, and he can find that for himself in whichever way he would like. I have no idea what they are, so let's discover together. Adam, what's going to be the first Pokemon on your team?
So the first one, as I mentioned just before, obviously had a brother. I had Blue, he had Red. He was able to get Weedle before me, so it's actually Beedrill. Ended up really liking Beedrill, really liking bug types. I have a Beedrill tattoo. It's just been a Pokemon I always thought was cool, and I desperately wanted to make it work when it was Mega Beedrill. Did I make it work? On paper, sure did. In practice, not so much.
So it really was a case of, because it wasn't appearing in your game, you liked it more.
Yes, my brother had it, because you can get both in both games, but it came earlier in his version. So we got the link cable just straight away. That was the first thing we bought, and he was showing me his team, and I had a Caterpie. That's fine, but then he's got this Weedle. I'm like, that guy looks cool. Where do I get them? And he's telling me where to get them, and we're just doing this like searching and searching and searching, and it's not showing up. And in the end, he got so annoyed with me asking him, where is it? Where is it? He was like, just take one. And that's how I took it through the whole game. It evolved super early, too, into the Beedrill. I was like, this is so strong. I have a huge Pokemon at level 12, and everyone else has not fully evolved Pokemon, which was a term I didn't really know yet, but I'll apply it to myself at 7 years old or so. And that one, I just thought, yeah, it was really cool. And often when I do playthroughs of games, I will keep a Beedrill around.
I noticed before we started recording the little Beedrill plushie you've got behind you on your shelf too, and I wondered if it'd be making an appearance.
Yeah, it does. This one, that one was a bit of a giveaway. Usually if I'm wearing shorter sleeves as well, that one does give it away as well. That was a treat that the official stream never actually got to witness. It was always covered up on shows.
If they were really stalling for time, then maybe.
Yeah. If we got really desperate all right, what casters have got branded tattoos that we can talk about? it would be a section for sure.
Perfect. Does that Beedrill plushie behind you have a name?
That's just Beedrill. They're all just Beedrill. I'm notorious for not. It's very rare that I nickname a Pokemon in any game. Most of the time, I'm the most boring person ever, and they are just named their name. That's
right.
That's just how I do it. Very rarely, the ones that do get a nickname, they stand out.
Yeah. Beedrill just didn't cut the mustard though. Just
no, not made it. Made it in the team, but
sorry, mate.
hasn't been given a nickname.
So, yeah. I used to be like you in that regard. Yeah, I never used to nickname, and then I don't know. I had my nickname era is very much what I'm in now. Do you want to show us a Beedrill tattoo or not? You don't have to.
Go on, I'll try. It's not very. It's actually a Mega Beedrill, and I got it done
cool. Wow.
right from the the manga. I just gave the page to the artist, and I was like, "Do this," and he did it. I was really, really happy with it. I did it. I think I started at 9 a.m. at a convention, so it wasn't a premium time, but it was all right.
It's come out very well indeed, really cool. Well, Beedrill, welcome to the team, and if you're enjoying this chat with Adam, everybody, please do like and subscribe. It really does go such a long way, much more than it might initially seem. We've got far more conversation to have with Adam, so let's continue right away. Your return to Pokemon and a brief competitive career, but where we've reached in the story, you haven't actually left Pokemon behind, so yeah, explain.
Yeah, after the sort of the PlayStation era, I took a bit of a pause after the Game Boy Advance. I don't know why, I just didn't rush to the DS. I didn't think it was the coolest thing ever, and I sort of didn't really play for a little while. I took a break, I was, playing a lot more sports and stuff, and really just being a normal teenager, I guess. And there was, around that time, that sort of stigma that, video games, particularly the Game Boy, was for nerds. And you didn't want to be a nerd, not at school. Obviously, that, I'd still had friends they were playing, and I remember we went on a school trip, and the guy sat next to me, his name was Tom. He was playing Pokemon Emerald, just religiously. So I'd sort of dropped off after Ruby Sapphire, and he was playing it, and I was like, oh, that does look cool, actually. Yeah, that does look pretty cool. So we came on a vacation. I had my trusty Game Boy Advance with me, obviously, and I picked up Pokemon Emerald while we were on the trip. Obviously, a lot of traveling. We were over here in the US, and right back into it. I was grinding through that game. I thought the story was fantastic, and I was actually a little bit behind. Emerald had been out, and we were actually in the Platinum or Diamond Platinum or Diamond Pearl then Platinum era. So I sort of ummed and ahed about it a little bit. And Andrew, one of my dearest friends, was brazenly playing his DS in the common room. And I was like, but this doesn't make sense, it's not cool to play video games. Well, it turns out it actually really was. So I went out that weekend, I'd saved up some money, and I bought it wasn't the original DS, it was one of the slimline ones, I think the more sleek ones.
DS Lite, I think.
I think it was Lite first, then I. But yeah, I jumped in on that. I got in on the Pearl train with the guys, and they genuinely became some of my closest friends. They still are to this day. We were playing in the common room. Should we have been working? Probably, but it's all worked out in the end. And we were spending our evenings just playing Pokemon. We would build teams and take each other on. We'd have mini tournaments in people's living rooms and stuff. And there was just a really positive time. Like I say, I'm still friends with all these guys. And it was nice. We were able to be normal teenagers, normal kids, but just do what we wanted. And nobody really was that bothered by it, which was really cool for me. Because sort of, growing up, you think, oh, if you play video games, you're going to be nerdy and that's like it for life. Well, obviously I am now, but I don't really care. And that really helped me. Just having that group of friends who didn't care if somebody came and said something about us playing the DS. A couple of my friends, somebody would be like, oh, you guys playing Pokemon? And we just, yes, we are actually. I'm building a team and we're going to play a tournament tonight. And that sort of defense of it really helped me be a little bit more of just who I wanted to be and hang out with them.
That's brilliant to hear. And also it's, I would say, a much earlier age than I often hear on this show as to when people just embrace what they're enjoying, and I guess it's so much to do with the people who are around you. So, really pleased to hear that. Yeah, you must feel very fortunate to have had that.
Yeah, no, I got very lucky, and those people are actually the same people who got me into the competitive scene. So around the time Heart Gold Soul Silver came out, we could drive. This was a new revelation to us. We were able to drive. So after school, we all met up. We had 2 cars. We drove to our nearest town that we knew would have it in. We went to the main game shop in the country and all picked up our copies. And then we went back to a friend's house, and I thought, this will be fun, we'll just play this for a little bit. I don't think we slept all weekend. We had a session. We basically moved into my friend's living room, and we just played Heart Gold religiously. I think one of my friends was he knew a little bit about the kind of inner workings and was trying to make sure he was optimizing stuff from the get-go. And I was just trying to run through the game as fast as possible. I thought the Pokemon following me was so cool. I wanted to evolve it, try everything following behind me. And it was around that time that we were looking stuff up. Obviously, I like a pure playthrough, but when I know what I want to check where to find it. And the website we used to find that information had a thing right on top. The Pokemon Video Game Championships, 2010. Beautiful. Right, let's get on this. So we finished our playthroughs, and I think it was the next weekend. We did the same kind of thing. We were just hanging out. And one of my friends was like, a train to Birmingham's like 20 quid. We can get straight to the NEC, and we can do this. And I was like, but we've only got a week. How are we going to do this in a week? Come up, build a team. We were learning how to train teams properly, and we ended up doing it. 3 of us went, and we turned up to the 2010 UK Nationals. It was very different back then. It was single elimination. You could swap items around as well. So that was a very odd thing. But there was only 256 people allowed in. And I think we were 240 to 243 or 242. We made it in. Absolute skin of our teeth. Did it go well? I had fun. I'll put it that way. I had a lot of fun. I ended up playing the overall second place finisher, and then the first place finisher, a gentleman named Reese. He was friends with a guy. I think he came top 4, so they came first and third, I think, by the name of Lee Provost. Was so into this scene, ended up trying to sort of meet everyone afterwards and make some friends, and ended up chatting with Lee, funnily enough. Lee and his friend Reese. Chatted to a few more people. We all kind of kept in touch lightly over the course of the year, and it was sort of forgotten about. I knew about Worlds. Obviously, the goal was to get the invite and go. We knew about Worlds and didn't really have the same kind of circuit we have now, so it sort of dropped off. But then we come to 2011, where Black and White comes out. Now, Black and White was I took a gap year between school and university. Most of my friends did as well. Black and White, I knew that there was going to be some new kind of gameplay on it. The time I put into that game to get good at this competition level was serious. Again, in our Friday nights, maybe we'd go out for a little bit. Back to the lab. We've got to build. We've got to test. It got really serious. And ended up as well going on that adventure with Lee. We got back in touch and we were making travel plans. We were back at the NEC for a little bit. We also went over to Paris. I went to Milan as well to try and get an invite there. And there was a whole lot of fun.
Wow. Lee Provost, of course, the person I featured for the very first episode of this podcast. Fellow caster and a content creator. Fantastic guy. Make sure you check out that episode if you haven't already. And it's so fascinating, from my perspective, to hear how all of these timelines link up with people I have on the show. Wow, okay.
There's a little bit more. Obviously, the 2011 adventure, we go on it. We went to the Birmingham first, and I don't think any of us quite got there. It was top 8 gets an invite, top 2 gets paid trip. I finished top 32 that one, and it stung. I thought I'd built the team that would take down that whole tournament. That one stung really bad. I didn't take it well, and in my rage, I believe I stopped for dinner with Lee and a couple other friends. we booked the cheapest coach from London to Paris to play in theirs. That's how we dealt with this. Ended up going to Paris. That team was a whole lot of fun. Ended up squeaking into top 4, actually. So I got the invite, and me and a friend, we had made a deal that if one of us got the invite, we would go. Even if we didn't have the trip, we would go to that World Championships. That World Championships, obviously, we flew out. It was in San Diego that year. The people I met that have set me up for kind of the rest of the career that I've had, my friend, his name's Chris. He went by the handle Pork Loin online. Very strange. He went and played in the Last Chance qualifier. Well, he got eliminated by Scott Glaser. I think we all know at this point. Also, that was the tournament I'd been practicing so much online, I'd kept running into Wolf. I met Wolf for the first time there as well. I met Dweehar as well with his brother. Just so many people that were there for just that event that I met. And that's where I really sort of fell in with the community. I was desperate to stay in touch with all of these people. So I was posting on forums, joining, chats and things. And that is really the bedrock of where I am now within this whole scene.
Wow. I'm delighted, first of all, that sort of impulse booking going to Paris did pay off. I mean, there's an alternative scenario where it goes absolutely terribly and maybe switches you off the game forever. But I'm glad that it went very well, and then it paved the way for meeting all of these people. Wolf Howlon as my 50th guest. The journey, as much of a journey it already was, is only just beginning, and before we continue on it, it's time to discover what the second Pokemon is going to be on your dream team alongside Beedrill.
That is going to be another bug type. I promise you they're not all bugs. It is going to look bad for a bit. It's a Heracross.
Nice.
You mentioned earlier in the chat that you were a big Gen 2 guy. I am as well. And Gen 2 and obviously Gen 4, which has Heart Gold Soul Silver in it, I think Gen 4 is actually fantastic, with Platinum being an absolute standout game. Heart Gold Soul Silver taking the formula of Gold and Silver, making it better. Really enjoyed those. And I remember one evening, I was having this debate with some friends. I was saying, what generation's best? And I came up for my ranking with a rule: if I can headbutt Heracross out of trees, that is a premium generation. It's such a fun mechanic to play with, and I'll always stop and get Heracross on those playthroughs.
It also limits the pool significantly, but
it does.
I think you knew what you wanted out of those games. Yeah, of course, that is how Heracross appears. Specific to Generation 2, that mechanic, along with some other Pokemon too, but Heracross, pretty sure a unique encounter via Headbutt Trees. And actually, I realised I didn't explain, just briefly, that Scott Glaser, another video game caster, someone who's been around for a long time as well, as you mentioned, name you mentioned before. Heracross and another bug type, welcome to the team. So, is bug your favourite type?
I think so. It's close between Bug and Poison. They're both types that I'm really keen to work into a team whenever I do build something. And I always, tried to look for something that way inclined. They're just cool. I think they've got cool moves. They've always been something, like I said, just try and work them in. Are they super good competitively? Depends who you ask.
It depends who you ask, and depends on the bug Pokemon that you're picking. But, I find that part of the allure. It's part of the charm to try and make them work competitively.
Right.
I would say. But anyway, okay, now from there into Grassroots streams as well as the US.
Yeah, well, there's a time after 2011 where I actually started visiting the US in the summer. I was playing a little bit at US Nationals in 2012, 2013. Those went pretty well. Obviously didn't win them or anything. But got to get closer with those people that I mentioned earlier. Meeting Aaron Zeng as well, another one of our casting cohort, obviously a fantastic content creator as well. Being able to meet all of those people kind of every summer was like a real treat. It was like part of my vacation. So I played in 2012, 2013, and I've been doing the America visits. Ended up actually basically getting ready to move here full time. That is a very time consuming process. There is a whole lot of paperwork. And it took me away from being able to play the game competitively anymore. I wasn't putting in the same time I was in 2011 or 12. And I could really feel sort of that I was slipping away a little bit. I came back, I know I played one of the UK Nationals before I left to emigrate. And then I played a couple of Orlando Regionals when I got here. And I could really tell I was not on that level anymore. The community had grown so much as well. There was so many other good players coming to the fore, and I could feel that I wasn't putting the time in to match them. So I ended up going to an Orlando regional, which was 5 or 10 minutes from my house at the time, and I met a gentleman named TJ. TJ was running probably one of the very first like grassroots regional streams. We're talking one little desk, one little camera, whatever mics we've got access to, and he invited me to do it. I mean, we'd hung out at some locals as well, just cups and challenges and their equivalents back in the day. But we got on, and he's like, I think you'd be really good at this. I'm like, it sounds like fun. I'll give it a go. So I did it the sort of first day of the regionals. I was like, oh, that is actually really fun. I enjoy being involved, talking about the game. I still got to see all my friends. I got to support them on how they were doing in the tournament as well. So that's really where it started. I think the second time he did it, he came straight to me and said, hey, I want you to do it again. Like, it was really fun. I could tell you enjoyed it. And I've got you a co-caster. I was like, oh, okay, who have we got? It was actually Gabby Snyder. So ended up, she was down for the regional, and I ended up doing one of these regional grassroots streams with her. That really went on, sort of 2015, 2016. It got a little bit out of hand. I enjoyed doing it so much. You know, we went from one laptop to at one point we had 2 screens, and that was a big one. We had a screen for the casters, screen for production which was just another laptop. But we started to travel for this. This completely took me by surprise. We started asking other regionals if they'd let us do it. There was no money involved. For people who thought grassroots streaming was some luxury business where we all made plenty of money and, you know, we're going out for luxury dinners, we were not. That was not a thing that was happening. We were largely barely covering our costs to get stuff out there. Obviously, all the gear was ours as well. But just trying to get there and keep eyes on VG was really the goal. I mean, I know we went up to Athens, Georgia to do it. We went over and did some stuff as well be over in California, which is obviously a long way for me. And it did really become kind of a separate, I wouldn't say separate, but a part of the community. Obviously out west, you had people like Nugget Bridge who were running their streams. So they were covering a lot of that. We were covering a lot of what we could in the southeast. And I know the northeast being covered by Liberty Garden at the time. There really was like a great little community of people who just wanted to talk about Pokemon and really just share their love of it with people online who maybe they wanted to see the battles. Maybe they wanted to, you know, listen to somebody break it down a little bit differently instead of just a mute stream. And it was really, really cool to see grow. I know a lot of teams were doing some really cool stuff out there. And it helped me too, because after moving, things were kind of pretty challenging for a while. Obviously a bigger move than I thought it would be. Just moving across to a different country is not that easy. But it gave me a sort of focus again, something to really throw myself into. I was waiting for a work permit, so I couldn't do that. So I was just sitting there thinking of ideas for the streams and stuff as much as possible every day. And it kept growing. I mean, it sort of overlaps with some of the other points, but we went from doing just video game. I remember we got a call. We were going to Dallas to do one of their regionals. And I remember getting this call that was like, hey, I've got a question for you. It's from the tournament organizer. Oh, okay, what's up? Can you do trading card game as well? Well, hang on. Like, I don't know the trading card game. I've barely done the trading card game. Anyway, we ended up taking that on as well. And I can tell you to this day, there is still boxes and boxes and boxes in my garage of the stream equipment and cables and everything that we used. So, yeah, if we're ever needed, if we are to be called upon, we are ready.
Superman moment, suddenly you've got that under your shirt.
Yeah.
It's fantastic that you're able to take what must have been, as you said, a time of upheaval, moving across the world and work permit up in the air. The fact that you're able to, as you say, channel your energy and take a real positive out of that is fantastic to hear. What was it briefly that motivated the move over to the US?
It was actually a previous relationship. I don't hide this from anyone. That's what it was. Didn't work out. And I actually had to face that choice as well of do I stay or not? It's a really awkward decision to say, like, you know, at the end of the day, I had a green card for a little while, and then you decide if you want to renew it. Now, if you don't, obviously it's time to go home. And I will say that the Pokemon community and being able to go to those events was a big reason. I thought about it. I thought long and hard. I could just go home, I'd probably find some work out there. But I really, really liked it here. And I really liked being able to go to regionals and see my friends and go to US Nationals as was and play in those tournaments as well. And it was nice, instead of talking to my friends in a completely different time zone, most of them were around the same time zone. So it just made sense to stay. I built a lot here, and I battled through it. Obviously, I had to do some moving and stuff like that in there as well, but it was all worth it. It's all worked out in the long run.
Wow, fascinating. And one member of that community, of course, as you mentioned, Gabby Snyder, who I've also featured on the podcast, another video game caster, so check that out if you haven't already. And that launchpad of community, perfect now to take us into what's going to be the third Pokemon on your dream team. Who's going to be joining Beedrill and Heracross? It's
continuing a bit of a trend. It's going to be Durant. It goes back a little bit. That was the Pokemon that drove me through my competitive seasons. 2011, that was the one where, I was using it specifically to beat Terrakion, which is obviously a top Pokemon at the time. And I sort of got known for it a little bit. Particularly the Spanish community. I did eliminate one of their players in a top cut round as was. And I was just known as the Durant guy. That was really the only team I could pilot. And even when I moved to the US, I remember we were at a regional. We're doing the Grassroots stream, and a player came up to me and was like, "Hey, you're Adam, right?" I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, just so you know, I've got a Durant on my team this weekend, and it's named after you because you were the one that piloted it the most." And I was very, very appreciative of that. That is what I was known as for a while until I learned that there were other Pokemon available. But yeah, it's got to go on the team, and it's got to keep the bug types running.
Perfect, yeah. So, was Durant at the time quite a unique choice?
Yeah, so not many people really looked at it. It had terrible special defense, and it's definitely a little lower on that scale right now. So the big thing it had was speed. So it would be marginally quicker than a Terrakion. Now, I was playing with the double genies and stuff like that, so it just made sense that people would bring their Terrakion against me. Well, I then thought, well, what beats Terrakion? And it is, I think they're very close to each other in the Pokedex too. I remember the night we came up with it, me and my friends were like, we've cracked this format. We are geniuses. Obviously, it wasn't as cracked as we first believed, but I stand by it. I think it was a good choice for the time, and it was a style I was very comfortable playing as well.
So the idea is that you outspeed the Terrakion, and because Steel is super fit against Rock, just sort of plow through. Right. Okay.
Just iron head it. Just take it out the battlefield. If they focus sash, they focus sashed, and hopefully you've got something else. But that was it. I trained it specifically to make sure it always outsped. It was always faster, but it would have enough damage to be able to take out most varieties of it.
Wow.
With a life orb, I think it was.
Incredible. Fantastic, and you can't spell fantastic without Ant. Durant, welcome to the team. And we're going to be hearing more about Durant later on, actually, Adam. But before that, time to talk about now joining the official roster, and you're casting before the pandemic.
Yeah, so after all of that with the Grassroots and stuff, sort of towards the end of 2016, I heard a rumor that they were looking to expand the team. It'd been Scott, Evan, particularly in North America. So it'd been Scott, Evan, Dwee, Aaron. I know Ray had been a part of it. They had used Shady Penguin and Justin Flynn as well. So there was sort of an established group. But I heard a rumor through some friends and such that there was a potential that they were looking for something new, something, obviously there were more events coming up. And so they were just expanding the team. Nobody was being removed or anything. And I took that really, really seriously. I was talking to kind of everyone about it, like, hey, what can I do better? How can I really improve? And I actually ended up talking to Dwee Har about it. Now, Dwee, obviously been there since day one, real OG caster. I have to give him so much credit because he took so much time with me and a couple other people to really train us up. We do multiple VOD reviews in a night. We do maybe one a week. He had some great insight in how to be a better caster, and I took that and learned from it. I was then taking that to regionals and applying that to my casts. I was doing a huge amount of work with Gabby, fortunately. She was able to join us in a lot of those regionals, so we were able to put in a lot of reps together, and that then sort of became an established duo. Well, at the end of 2016, there was, it was about October time, there was a regional in Orlando. Gabby came down. Gabby has some family sort of down this way as well, and loves the sort of big Disney fan, I believe. So, yeah, likes to visit. And we did a regional together. The way that the room was set up, though, we had a representative from TPCI just sat in the room with us. We had our own room, but he was just sat in there watching. And he ended up sort of giving some feedback to those in the know. So we trucked on with that. And actually, end of 2016, Gabby got picked up to do her first regional. She did, I believe it was San Jose Regional Championship on the official team. That was when they were only covering 3 a year. And I sort of got a little down on it. I was like, well, the opportunity's gone. I'm not so sure. Like, maybe it's just not my time. We ended up going to Dallas. It would have been New Year's, that kind of year, going into 2017. And Gabby was there again. And, we sat down, we talked about it. And she's like, just keep going. Like, they're not going to add 2 new people at once. Just please keep going. So we did. We had another representative from the Pokemon Company International there. Just, became quite good friends with them. But he obviously watched some of it and knew roughly what they were looking for. And he gave that feedback to the company. He went back and said, hey, he's good. Like, if you want to pick him up, pick him up. I was so driven by that. I think it was 2 weeks later, we were in Athens, Georgia. And we went and did a Grassroots stream there. I was like, I've got to keep building up this resume of stuff. And then it was actually on the way back from Athens, somebody from TPCI, Pokemon Company International, messaged me on socials and said, hey, I need your email. We can start this process officially. And so a couple months later, I was in illustrious Collinsville, Illinois, also known as the St. Louis Regional. And that was my first official cast. I believe I was with Evan, Dwee, Aaron, Gabby, maybe? There was a lot of us. There was a lot of us on the cast at that time. And I've done a lot of casts, so remembering each roster is difficult. But no, we turned up, we did an official cast, and I absolutely loved it. I was like, I want to keep doing this. There was just a huge moment for me. I had a lot of fun with everyone there. And I sort of was like, right, it was all worth it. It was genuinely worth to just put that grind in over and over.
Wow. I think, as you say, it must have felt really disheartening when a message came through for Gabby, but then for you it came a little later.
Yeah, I mean, I was very happy for Gabby. Yeah,
yeah.
Just want to clarify that.
yeah. I'm glad though you took Gabby's advice to keep going as well, because then the way you ended up. Okay, and then so that just sort of progressed right up until COVID shut things down.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing a lot of events, and I'm very grateful for everyone I've worked with at the Pokemon Company International, both the Seattle, London offices, everyone I've worked with on various production teams, Paperlight, ESL Australia, ESL Europe, that I kept getting opportunities. After 2017, I was blown away that they put me on to do what would have been the first NAIC after the rebrand, and then Worlds that year in Anaheim. I was absolutely stunned that they kind of kept giving me those opportunities. Then I ended up being asked to go to Europe at the end of the year to do an EUIC. That was just a huge shock. And it kept going from there. I was getting asked to go to, ICs and a lot of regionals as well. And it just kept growing. Every year we were doing more events. They were taking people to Australia, taking people to Brazil, which is weirdly enough one I never did until I was on the production team. We'll get into that later. And I was just so fortunate that people would say I was doing a good job and keep bringing me back. I was feeling so good about that year, going into the beginning of 2020. Obviously, we knew London Worlds had been announced. I was really, really up for it at that point. London Worlds for me was going to be huge. I love the city, obviously back in the homeland, if you will. And that was absolutely, I was like, right, we're going to get to that Worlds and we're going to explode. I also kind of knew, or I was guessing that we'd be able to mix some of the teams a little bit more, right? We'd have, Lou and Lee who had done some stuff. I'd probably get to do some more work with them, and they'd be there. And it was like just a really exciting opportunity to truck onto. And obviously, things changed a bit when everything shut down and the world stopped. And I then had to sort of sit and reflect on what I'd done. I'd been doing nearly 3 ICs, worlds, and multiple regionals a year. It was pretty draining. It was tiring. But I was really proud of a lot of the casts I did. I'm so grateful I've got to work with nearly everyone. I think maybe you and Ben Kiriakou was like a weird exception because of the way things fell with the European team. But I worked with everyone. I worked on big stages, small stages. I casted great games, and some way of sort of scratching your head, going, "Oh well, I'm glad I'm not down there playing it." And I think I'm proud of that time. I think I always brought my best and did really, really well when we were kind of in full flow.
That's fantastic to hear. And I mean, you say you were really fortunate that people kept asking you back, but of course they kept doing that for a reason, because you were putting in the fantastic work. So, takes two to tango. And
I appreciate that.
Fantastic that you put yourself in the best possible position. And it really interesting as well, as a final point on this topic, that it's sort of come full circle and approaching what would have been London Worlds 2020, potentially with Lee Provost, who, of course, you met all those years ago, would have been 10 years ago at that point. So you presumably kept in touch during that time, and had you just sort of watched each other's casting careers from afar with admiration, sort of thing?
Well, I was lucky enough to go over to Europe and do some work. Obviously, as a British citizen, it kind of made sense, right? So I'd worked with him a little bit at EUICs and stuff. Obviously, we did a lot of caster rotation. And so I'd always kept an eye on it, and I always thought it was fantastic. So I definitely wanted, like you said, the 10-year anniversary for us would have been really nice, and would have just all landed maybe a little too perfectly. And I've always watched his casts and thought, he's done a great job. We didn't bring people over to the US as much back in that time, so we were really limited on opportunities to work together. And
how good it must have felt when eventually you had been able to work together. And again, fantastic that this friendship was just continuing to blossom. But before we dive into then what happened next, let's look at what the fourth Pokemon is going to be on your dream team. Are we going to continue this bug type trend with Beedrill and Heracross and Duran? Let's find out.
No, it's going to be Chandelure.
I thought you were sort of positioning yourself as a gym leader there, Adam. But okay, no. Chandelure is joining the team.
No, Chandelure is just another one. I've used it in competitive teams. I also used it, had a brief foray into trying to play the trading card game, and didn't really last very long. I still dabble, but on a competitive level, I was not there. And I used just a really fun Chandelure deck for that one as well. It's just a cool Pokemon. It's been around long enough now for, I think, people to appreciate it. I always get excited when it turns up on modern competitive. People will message me and be like, "Hey, have you seen there's a Chandelure on stream?" Oh, okay, cool. And I have to go watch that for a little bit. It's something I used in my 2012 and 2013 teams myself, and I really think it's been good. It also made a feature in the 2011 team I used. Has a connection to my friend Chris, Porkloin. We built a team around the idea of countering Trick Room, and that was used as the powerhouse to get through it. It was next to one of my rarely named Pokemon, or nicknamed Pokemon, which was named after a couple of different things as we did different iterations of the team. But yeah, it's been a Pokemon I've used for a long time, and if it fits into a format, I'll try and fit it in.
Chandelure, breaking the trend of the bug-type gym leader. I think in my heart of hearts, that's still how I see you, though, Adam.
That's fine.
Basis of those first three Pokemon, yeah. But it is lighting the way now into talking about, well, you had your blossoming casting career, but then the choice to retire and move on.
Yeah, so I always said to myself, and I think this was something I wrestled with. When we were doing the Players' Cups, I was having a lot of fun. And I was, again, so grateful for the opportunity to do those from home and stay involved with the game while...
Online tournaments, for anyone unfamiliar, that happened during COVID, yeah.
Yeah, the Players' Cups being... They were crazy that they were running them. They were single elimination. You had to qualify out of your region. You had to submit screen recordings if you wanted to be on stream. A lot of work, but we definitely needed them. I was doing those. There were some really cool invitationals around them, and I was doing those and enjoying it. I did get to work with Lou in a digital sense as well. We were all in little boxes. We were all recording in our spare rooms, and I was getting a little nervous, I guess, that maybe I'd done too much. I was also trying to balance a new job at the time, so I'd just taken on kind of a bit of a pivot in career. So I was like using days off to record these, or working odd hours to record and then work the rest of the day. I was putting myself through a lot to really get through that time. And so I just started realizing as we came back around beginning of 22. We came back to the 4 there and ended up sort of, as we came back, things had definitely changed. We had a couple new faces as well. Joined the team, Joe Brown, another of our casters. Really happy to do some casting with him. But I sort of started thinking back to that London Worlds and how important that would be to me. I really wanted to end on a high note there. So I'd sort of made my mind up. I never wanted to be there too long. I could see there was a lot of great casters coming. You know, you guys over in Europe have been building up some great teams, even with a grassroots kind of lens on it. I knew that, you know, we had people like Joe coming through. Sierra had joined us. Sierra Dawn, another one of the VG casters, had joined us over the Players' Cup era. And I could I felt a little bit like I was in the way. I'd been doing it a long time, but there was a lot of people that I wanted to grow and have a really good time. All at the same time, I'm taking on this new job. I had a really bad injury in the beginning of 22. It was my fault. It was self-inflicted. It was an incident at a wedding, but, you know, I had to have a surgery for it. And I sort of realized I wasn't getting any younger, which I don't think any of us are. So I went to London with this idea in mind. I was going to talk to a couple guys in the production that I was friends with. You know, I'd had a really good summer. That NAIC was really, really good. And I thought, well, what if I end in London? And I'll post it pretty publicly. And I didn't want those questions either, because I know, you know, we've had people leave before for whatever reason. And there's always that question of, you know, where did so-and-so go? What happened to so-and-so? I wanted to control that narrative a little bit. So went out to London, and I was having a conversation with the production guys, James, Tyler, who I work with very closely now, about leaving and saying, you know, on Sunday afternoon, I'll make a post that I won't be coming back. Do you have anything for me to do on the production side so I can still be involved? And they said to me straight up to my face, I remember we were outside in the loading dock at the London XL. They said, we're not going to tell you why, but you have to do another year. Okay, well, why would I have to do another year? That sounds preposterous. And I started digging with them. I was like, why? Is somebody, you know, leaving? You know, you need enough bodies. Where are we going? And they made it, without telling me anything, they made it very clear. There is an announcement coming before the end of this weekend that if you say anything before that announcement, you are going to look very, very, very silly. And the announcement was obviously Yokohama. So that announcement came, and I thought, all right, I'd also wanted to end on a high note and do another Masters Finals. I'd done a Masters Finals in my first year. I wanted to do another one and show that I could still do it, even though I was kind of falling behind a bit. So I did the following year. I did 2023, went out. That was the last OCIC, which I was super grateful to go to. We had a fantastic EUIC that year as well. And, you know, that sort of time, coming up to Yokohama, I had really made peace with it. I'd already been talking to the guys on the production team about finding me something to do so I could still be involved. They'd been super transparent, like, hey, we don't really have anything now. It might come up, but, like, you know, we're doing our best. And going into Worlds 2023, they'd sort of mentioned that, like, something was going to be there for me if that was the decision I made. So I'd already spoken to a couple of producers about it. To be honest, I spoke to a couple of our video game producers way back in Australia that year. So we went out on the Sunday night after the show, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And ultimately, she said, it's your choice. If you're ready to make peace with it and go pursue something else, go and do it. So I thought about it for a little bit longer, and then I messaged her and said, hey, I've made the decision. Like, this is right for me to step down and do that. So obviously, went through the rest of the season with me knowing this. I kept it fairly private. I think a few people knew. My girlfriend obviously knew as well. She was very supportive of the whole thing. And I knew going into that event, I didn't want it to be about me. Obviously, we're in Japan. I just wanted to keep it to myself and have a really good final cast. And I was so grateful to do that finals with Scott. Obviously, with Shohei winning. And it was just really cool to be able to be a part of one more of those big moments. So managed to get through that event. I definitely struggled afterwards, leaving stage. It really hit me, the decision that I had made. And I told the rest of the casting team at this point. I think Sierra was actually in the audience and came up. She was like, hey, is this rumor true? I'm like, yeah, it actually is. It's very much the case. And it's not a rumor, it's just a fact. But everyone was really supportive, and I went backstage. I had to walk. It was quite a long way in that Yokohama venue. I walked backstage and went and spoke to our director, a gentleman named Brandon Floyd. And he just gave me the biggest hug and was like, hey, you ended that so well. Like, if there's a note to end that side of your career on, that's the one. Weirdly enough, I ended up going back and doing a TCG show, a regional, the following season. But that's because things were still moving with the production role. So, yeah, had to fill that one in. But for VG, we ended in Yokohama.
Wow. Sometimes you just have an innate feeling that, the time is right. Even if from the outside it might seem like, well, you're at the peak right now. But sometimes I guess, is at the peak is where you want to end things.
Well, it reminds me, there's a saying from a football commentator, Jamie Carragher. It's like, he gets joked about because he says it. He covers the Premier League and the Champions League. He says, leave the football before the football leaves you. And I sort of just replaced football with casting, right? Like, step away before I go to an event and go, oh, I haven't finished the DLC yet. And I'm, I'm significantly behind. And with the work I was doing at the time, I knew trying to stay on top of it at the level that you really need to wasn't going to happen. The DLC was downloaded and never opened. So I was like, okay, I made the right call at the end of that.
And OCIC, for anyone unfamiliar, we no longer have the Oceania International Championships, but that was another one of the International Championships circuit. Right, Adam, Dawes, time to discover what's going to be Pokemon number 5. Who's going to be joining you? Bugs in Durant, Heracross, and Beedrill, as well as Chandelure.
We're doubling up on the ghosts, actually. We're going with the Sableye. The Sableye was just another one I think is really cool. I've used it in some competitive teams. It brought me way back in 2012. I was playing a team that had Sableye and Chandelure as a potential lead option, and a friend was sort of saying, hey, you need to try this variety of it. It had Captivate, which would lower special attacks on Pokemon of the opposing gender. Well, some of those Pokemon were things like Thundurus, which are obviously locked to being male all of the time. So we made the Sableye to be female, so it always guarantee those lower special attacks. And obviously people, would play whatever. Sometimes you just get lucky and their whole team would be able to have their special attack lowered. Just a really cool Pokemon. Also, another one, in every sort of brief foray into the TCG, it usually ends up becoming relevant. It's one of the more interesting ones. I dabbled when I lived in the UK with some of that kind of circuit, and that was when a Junk Hunt Sableye was eligible. I dabbled a bit not last season, the season before, between regionals that I was working. I was playing the TCG, and I was playing a deck that revolved around the Lost Zone, and one of the big Pokemon in that archetype is a Sableye. So, I played it there as well. It just seems to consistently crop up, I guess.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what it takes for a Pokemon to join our dream team, just life's way of saying that it should be there. I know that Ben Kiriakou will be delighted to hear that Sableye is on your dream team. That is Ben's favourite Pokemon, and a name you've mentioned before. And someone else I featured on the podcast, I do check out that episode too. And Adam, if your final Pokemon isn't Chazingdra, I'm going to be very disappointed. We've got the bug theme developing, we've got the ghost theme developing.
You'll have to wait.
We will have to wait, because now we're going to talk about your production life and the future.
Yeah, so I joined the production team pretty quickly after 2023. I'd been talking to these guys for nearly a year at this point about doing it. You know, where could I fit in? Where do my personal skills, you know, like I'm a web developer by sort of day job. Where would that fit in? What would be fun to do and cool? So those conversations were ongoing. Now, after 2023 Worlds in Yokohama, we started the season in Pittsburgh. And that brought me in as the first time sort of officially on production. You know, I'm on a different list as a full-time SME, subject matter expert, potentially. Now, for those who don't know, those guys work backstage to help the production team translate Pokemon speak. There's certain things that you're just not going to understand. You could be a fantastic, talented engineer or whatever, but if you don't know the Pokemon, somebody has to translate that. And that's what the SMEs do. They're really, really good at it. It's a very surprisingly deep role. You know, there's a lot of data to update, and you also help with like the match selections and offering up those choices for, you know, what we want to feature on stream. So I started out with that, and I was ready to do that for sort of a full season, see what I could grow it into. I then, second regional, I went and did the TCG casting side, just because I was available. The schedules were that tight at that time. But then I got a call before that event. It was from a guy named Tyler Hooper. He's been there a long time. I've known him since 2017 when I started working with them. He called me and said, "Hey, how do you feel about doing graphics?" Now, we'd always got on, we chatted, and I said, "Oh, it'd be really fun to do." And he said, "Well, we've got a seat opening up." They were making a change on the graphics side, and, you know, we have operators now. You know, we have to sit there with our piece of software and follow direction on what graphic do we want on stream, you know, what's coming up next. Because otherwise, fun secret, guys, you'll just end up with, like, the cameras with just black boxes around them. So we have to, you know, cover that with graphics, and that's part of our job. We work with the technical director to kind of automate some of that process as well. But I did it for the first time would have been Sacramento, California at that regional. And Tyler was there kind of supervising and helping out, you know, saying, "Hey, you know how to do this." The couple of events before, I'd been watching another operator work, so I could learn kind of his method, and I'd looked at some of the other guys on Video Game and Go. I actually ended up getting the seat for the trading card game. So ended up doing that, and it just grew. I mean, I loved it from day one. When we were doing the Grassroots streams, and the reason I brought them up earlier is I used to try and have a little fun with it, particularly on my side. So we did have very basic graphics. They weren't super thrilling, but we do, you know, what we call in the business, and I know people call them different names, the lower thirds. The text pops up, you know, it's names or dates or any sort of additional information. So I used to do those, and I used to sort of, I don't want to say make fun, but, you know, try and joke around a little bit with the players and stuff. You know, if they lost in, you know, some silly fashion, I'd try and make light of it for them. And, you know, if something, you know, weird happened, I'd want to call it out without being rude about it. And it got weirdly noticed back in the day. People would watch our streams and go, you know, who in chat, they'd be like, "Who's doing this? Who writes these little jokes like on the fly?" And the secret was, it was always me all along. I was just doing it out of love of the game. So I ended up getting the graphics role, and again, I'm in charge of the lower thirds. And I just started to have fun with it again. I really, you know, I'd obviously watch the games and just try and bring a little bit of energy to an interview, for example, or, you know, if we're doing a long section in the lounge where we're discussing things, you know, give the guys something to talk about. And that's where I sort of fell into a unique role of, I've obviously played the game, you know, I've casted the game as well. But that's not normal for a graphics operator. Usually you're a lot more removed and you're a lot more dialed in on what's coming down the list. You're following kind of a run of show and stuff like that. But I feel like I'm in a unique position to be able to try and elevate some of those streams, just with my knowledge of that game, working with the SME as well. I think a couple that I'm really proud of, my third ever event as a graphics operator, my second one unattended would have been LAIC, the Latin American International Championships down in Brazil. That was the third show I ever did. I just get put in a room with the director, whose name was Luke, and it's like, right, you're up. You're doing graphics for this IC. Well, hang on, I've only done regional level, but we had a lot of fun with that one. Luke really allowed me to be creative and play with stuff. I remember in the seniors finals, or it was either seniors or juniors, there was a player whose first name was Prince. And obviously when he won, well, I'm not giving that one up, am I? I'm like furiously typing away, like, how do we word it the best? And we ended up, with Prince ascends to the throne of LAIC, and had a lot of fun with that one. I was, and I started doing that. I was like, I'm really proud of my work here. And people would mention it to me too. They'd be like, hey, who? You work in production. Who's doing these now? Because like the vibe has shifted very quickly. We had Ross Cawthon on, a very prolific trading card game player. He's currently in the running for his 21st Worlds invite in a row. But that's all been sort of said before. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's all been said. So I actually ended up, while he was playing, I could see he was going to win. We were going to do a long interview with him. So I just found quotes from his websites and used those as the lower third. So instead of just letting, Ross wins games 1 and 2 quickly, great. Ross is a respected scientist in the subject of dark matter. And I just put that up. That's the fun fact. Ross Cawthon, respected, Dr. Ross Cawthon, actually. And I've done that with a few people. I got Rahul really well, Rahul Reddy. I know you've had him on before. Fantastic episode with him, by the way. Nice. He got caught with that clip where they ask him about his favorite food, and he, for some reason, I don't know what possesses him, he calls out the venue hot dog.
Yeah.
I don't know why he did it. I've asked him multiple times. He doesn't know. But when he was getting interviewed, I didn't even ask permission on this one. I knew it was funny, but I just wanted to check. So I just wrote Rahul Reddy at the top, known hot dog connoisseur, and took it live. And my director at the time was just like, I know you're being cheeky with him. Like, there's so many better things you can say. He's like 7-1, and I just completely ignore that just to talk about hot dogs. And so yeah, we sort of got to play around with that one. It's been really fun. Just sticking with the TCG right now. I don't know if anything will come up. I do always look over at the TCG line, and I can see in some of my monitors, I can see the video game broadcast. But the guys over there who work on that are all phenomenal as well. I mean, it really is another type of community. We get in a little bit earlier than everyone else, and the production team is a team. You really notice when the team is ticking over, things are going well, things are going badly. When you're a team, it's so much easier. And we have so much fun as well. I mean, we hang out kind of before and after the show a little bit. Some of those days are really long. So it's nice to be able to go and hang out afterwards and just kick back and relax. I know at the European International Championships, we'd see you and Ben and a couple other guys just milling around. And it's been cool to see their side. I do think there's, sometimes where people forget, there is a whole team doing a lot just to bring this stream to fruition. And I'm very happy to be just a little bit of a part of it. I mean, there's separate people to do everything. If the show sounds great, that's because there's a guy who really cares making it sound great. When the show looks great and the cameras are all perfect, that's because there's a guy who cares about the cameras, and that is his job. The replays are thrilling. Yep, that's the replay guy. And I really enjoy being a part of that team because I can still be involved in the community, but I am involved with sort of a different subset of people, and still able to have a lot of fun on those trips as well.
Thanks so much for calling that out, Adam, because it's so true, and I think it's one of those things where the more seamlessly everyone's working together and putting on a great show, the less it's noticed. Mm-hmm. The better the show looks, the better the production is behind it, but therefore maybe the less people will think just how many people are there going through it, because everything just flows so seamlessly. Huge shout out to everyone backstage at these productions to make all of them happen and put on such a fantastic show for all of us. I guess my main question coming out of what you've just talked about there, Adam, is you've had your casting experience, you're now doing this. What you're doing now, does it feel right for you?
I genuinely love it. It's so much fun. It's a different side, and I think it's interesting because, you know, some of the guys on the production line, they don't really play Pokemon. It's not their thing. So I get like the best of both worlds. Like I get to be part of this really tight knit production team and see that grow as well. While also, I'm hanging out with. I do consider near all of them friends. You know, I don't think there's anyone I've had a beef with back there. So there's sort of that production friendship, and then there's like a Pokemon specific team. I mean, TCG's gone crazy this year. With obviously at Worlds, we debuted the new TCG look and feel with the pieces on the side. I don't know if you've got to really see it, but there is a whole team of guys operating that in the back, and it's, you know, I'm now get to hang out with them on the regular, and that's really cool. It does feel right. I feel like I'm involved, but I'm not pressured to know the game as much. If there's a card I don't know, I'll learn it while we're on the show. You know, it's not like I'm trying to get away with sitting up there and going, oh, what's that? Hang on, let me pull that up real quick. So yeah, it does definitely feel very, very correct. And I like being around to support the casters as well. You know, I've said it to all of them. You know, I used to be one. If you guys just want to chat or something, get away for a second, as long as I'm not in the middle of something, I'm happy to talk with them. I'm happy to hang out, and, you know, I've been there, been nervous and stuff like that too. So yeah, I'm happy that I can see everyone, and, you know, it's still good fun.
Yeah, wonderful. And I mean, going forwards, that's absolutely something that I will bear in mind myself. And my final brief question on this front, Adam, is, of course, at some point along the way, you had to start playing the trading card game at least a little bit to do what you're doing now. So how long had that been going on?
So it's been on and off, actually, for a really long time. I dabbled way back in 2012 with sort of a club at university. We went to a couple locals, you know, didn't take it very seriously, didn't spend much money on it. You know, met some cool people that way. But it wasn't really for us, and obviously you got to get through and finish university. And then sort of it came up again when I was in the starting process of moving here. I was spending a lot of time here, and it was a great way to sort of meet people. And it was more consistent than the video game. So, you know, I'd have a couple little decks and play those. And then probably the sort of last year that I was casting, I'd done some trading card game stuff earlier in the year. So I'd like been really grinding because we had that gap without the video game, if you remember. We had no events for, I think it was 4 or 5 months until January. But I went and worked with the trading card game team over there on camera, and really played the game a lot through that whole process, really enjoyed it. So then when I did have events off, I was actually playing trading card game at those regionals. I was playing a lot of locals as well, which does help now. You know, I do understand the game very, very consistently, so it definitely helps sort of being able to look at stuff and be like, hey, that doesn't add up. And that's been really, really useful in obviously both casting it and producing on it.
Okay, well, thank you for that little insight there, Adam. Now it's time. What's going to be the final Pokemon joining your dream team? Is it going to be Chazingdra?
It is not Chazingdra. It is an absolute curveball. It's actually Orthworm.
That is to be honest, if it could be any other Pokemon, that's probably the best you could have chosen.
Yeah, it kept cropping up, Orthworm, in sort of the end of, you know, when I made my decision to leave casting, you know, it was just a funny bit. I don't know why. It was on a couple teams at one of the EUICs where people were really, really trying to make Orthworm work, and I think a couple people did actually. I believe might have been David Kutesh. I'm not sure. I know he's built an Orthworm team in the past. Fantastic player, does some, should we say, rogue cooks, if you will, where he really, you know, comes up with a team that I can't understand. But there was just a couple bits with it that it just kept, again, it's kind of like the same, it just kept occurring. And I remember going into that NAIC, I'd been thinking about this bit for a while. It's sort of a long-running joke. So we used to do, when we had some downtime, we'd do the Pictionary segments where, you know, somebody would draw a Pokemon and everyone would try and guess what it was. Now, at one of the events, I believe it was EUIC, somebody used Terrafire Orthworm. And I thought it was really funny. It looked really goofy with the chandelier on the top. And at the end, I was like, that would be a great Pictionary, because you can draw the chandelier first. Most people know I like chandelier, Litwick, lantern, all of that. So we're going to have to jump through the hoops. And so I made sure I was on one of those segments. I was like, right, I know what I've got to draw. I know what I've got to do. We're probably not going to do it at Worlds, so it's my last opportunity. It went exactly as you'd expect, right? Is it Litwick? No. Is it Lampant? No. Is it Chandler? No. As I add an arm each time, and then as soon as I did sort of the body of the Orthworm, it was just like, it's Terrifier Orthworm, isn't it, Adam? Yes, it is. I was very, very proud of it. And that bit, my girlfriend really, really liked it. Laughed a lot at it. Just being able to kind of enjoy that. And so we have, actually, on the desk, I do keep the full art version, just jumping through the sand. I'm also a big fan of sandworms, weirdly enough, from Beetlejuice. I think they're really cool, so it kind of scratches that itch as well.
Love that little shout out at the end as well. All sorts of facets in which some of your Pokemon picks have made the cut. Orthworm joining the team is very reminiscent to me of EYC 2024, where Costa Lee and I were doing Pictionary, and he was drawing a star, and I'm like, it's Staryu, mate, it's Staryu. But he kept going. He was like, just stop it, mate. He sort of fudged the argument to make it a Kartana, and it was brilliant. He did a fantastic job. So you and Costa both right on that train. And Orthworm, it can be a more perfect Pokemon to end on too, because we started with Generation 1 with Beedrill, and we end with the current Generation 9 with Orthworm. So this means, Adam, that your complete dream team is Beedrill, Heracross, Durant, Chandelure, Sableye, and Orthworm. I have to ask you now, Adam, if you were to pick one of these to be your partner Pokemon, which would it be?
That is a brutal question. It's definitely, when I started thinking about this one, we immediately went to the bug types. I do kind of align with the gym leader side of things there as well. I think I'm just going to go with Durant. I think it was best sort of competitively for me. And so it comes with a lot of warm memories in that regard.
Yeah. And as I say, I sort of see it as a signature Pokemon of yours now.
Yeah.
Durant, and yeah, as you say, represents to the competitive side of things that has been so important to you in your life. So, Durant, congratulations, you are Adam's partner Pokemon. And now a slightly different kind of question for you, Adam. If you were a Pokemon, what do you think you would be?
I've mulled this one over, and it's so difficult. I kind of just want to be like, I just want to be a little guy just having a good time, not really causing many problems. It would probably be something silly like I think I sort of ended up back near Totodile, really, because he just looks like he's having a good time. He's just swimming around in the sun, just chilling out. That'd be cool, and then there's the potential to become a cool Feraligatr as well.
Yeah, and it speaks to your love of Generation 2. So that sounds pretty good to me. Yeah, I'm now trying to visualize the sort of presence you have backstage and whether I'd associate Totodile with that energy, and I can definitely see it. You've got to be very in the moment and ready to pounce backstage as well, I guess, when you're doing your job and trying to catch, okay, we need to put that graphic here now. And I can see it. Watertight for you, I can also see. But what do you all think? Do you agree that of all the Pokemon, we have more than 1,000 of them now, Adam would be a Totodile? Drop a comment and let us know. We would be fascinated to read. And speaking of you all, it's time for your community questions. I post online, as I always do, asking for questions for Adam. Thank you so much for submitting them. I apologise as ever if I mispronounce any of your names or handles. And, of course, won't be able to feature them all, unfortunately. But we had some fantastic ones. So, having just said I don't know how to pronounce any of your names or handles, this is a prime example. I'm just going to read out the letters. So, NYXIIE __ TVII.
That's Marisa. I know who that is.
Marisa. Okay, right. Thank you very much for clarifying. And Marisa is
my partner. Yes,
is your partner.
So great. This is probably a very loaded question. By the way, I have not seen it.
Quite possibly, we will have to see. I don't know why Marisa couldn't have just asked you this, in you living in the same domestic space, but...
I think she wanted you to ask.
Yeah, that's what I assume as well.
It's probably more fun and better content than... I don't think we're planning on filming our dinner time chat anytime soon.
Sure.
So yeah,
Okay.
this is probably just better in the
Yeah.
long run.
I thought you were about to say, I don't think we're planning on filming this episode, and I was about to have to explain to you how the format of the podcast works, but okay, here we go. So, do you still play Pokemon, or has your break from casting given you room to explore other games? If so, what do you enjoy most about it?
Yeah, so I have sort of dipped off the Pokemon chat. I'm still friends with a lot of the guys, and I can chat with them. But the big thing for me recently, and it is sort of a competitor product, so I apologize to anyone from the company listening to this. I found Magic the Gathering, the Commander format. It has been a revelation in my life. It is a unique kind of deck building strategy. It's a crazy 100-card one-of deck rules, and a number of my friends actually here in Florida that I've met through work, they play it religiously. It is a fantastic social game. You are able to just sit around, relax, enjoy yourself, and play this. It's a bit of a mind bender when you're new to it. But in the past sort of 6-7 months, maybe even a little bit longer, maybe sort of 8 or 9 now, it has just been a huge thing socially. Being able to go over to my friend's house, we go nearly every Friday. Marisa plays as well, so we're able to kind of talk about that together at home. It's really, really cool. And I think overall, that has taken some of my attention away. But, even when we do regionals and stuff, a bunch of the guys in the production crew actually play as well. And so we'll take a couple decks to an event with us, and, instead of, just going straight to bed or something, we'll sit in the lobby. There'll be some of the production guys playing Pokemon TCG, and we'll just be playing that as well. So, no, it's been really, really fun. It's definitely an addictive game. And there's a lot of options on what you can play. You can basically build it however you want. So yeah, that's been a big interest recently.
And actually, a much less loaded question than it could have been. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for that question, Marisa. Now, a question from Team Fish Knuckles TFK Pokemon. Which is more fun to watch or commentate, TCG or VGC?
Ooh, well, I'm going to upset 50% of the room, aren't I?
Yep, gloves are off.
I think honestly, for the pacing in an overall day, I enjoy kind of watching VG a little bit more. There are definitely turns in the trading card game, which isn't a bad thing. It's a very healthy part of the game, where there's just a lot of thinking and a lot of searching and looking through the deck. And I feel those turns are a lot rarer in the video game. So being able to, see those explosive turns, it's very nice almost when you get a break of a slow turn, a switch and a protect. You actually get to catch up on what you're saying as a caster. So it's definitely more of a challenge. No disrespect to TCG. I think it's a lot of fun. And I actually found on that one that I had a little bit more room for creative expression. So the game's a lot slower, so you can go on these longer anecdotes and stories and really build up where you want to go. Sometimes there would be a horribly silly punchline, but it's not my problem anymore. So it's good. So yeah, both have their merits. But obviously I was on the video game for longer, and I think that's still, if I had to come back and do one, it would probably be that.
As you say, a very difficult decision, but I guess the video game is what got you into this whole scene in the first place, so that makes sense. Thank you for that question. And now, he's come up before, and he's asking a question now. Lee Provost, Osiris, VGC, good friend of yours of more than 10 years now, would like to know, in fact, around 15 years now.
It is.
And this is where Durant comes back in, your partner Pokemon, and I quote this exactly, if Big Boy Durant got a Mega Evolution, would you come out of retirement?
First of all, let me clarify. The Big Boy Durant thing that's what we always called it. It was always the full name, as if it was its official name. It's just what we called it for years. It's not weird that he's calling it that. And response to the follow-up, yes. If they give Durant a buff or a Mega Evolution that makes it highly competitive, or I'd even say semi-competitive, I would explore the concept of playing a regional at least. The tough bit is, obviously, I work on all of the US ones, so I'd have to do a European one, but that doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world. So we'll see what we get in the next couple of years. If they'll deliver me the goods to bring me back. But then I will expect Lee to play that one with me, like for old time's sake. He will have to, in response, make sure to do his part as well.
Mm. And would Lee have to run the Durante?
No, he's allowed to run something different.
Okay.
But if he believes in me, that's...
The true test of friendship. Mega Evolution, for anyone unfamiliar, a temporary additional final form given to some Pokemon, giving a boost to their stats and changing the tides of battle. Seems like we're going to get Mega Evolution Pokemon back in Pokemon Legends ZA coming later this year. So, Mega's very much on the horizon once more. Thank you for that question, Lee. And now, final question from another caster and another name that you've mentioned. It's Joe Brown at Zemanan online. I'm actually not quite sure how to pronounce Joe's handle, but that's my best guess. Who was your favourite caster to work with? And if it's not me, I'm leaving a dislike on the video, adds Joe. Good luck.
Okay. This is such an awful question. First of all, I mean,
you don't have to answer it directly.
No, let's just clarify one thing. Is the dislike still interaction? Does that count? Does that work? At least people are in it.
It's still a thing, I think. Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, there's no way I can pick. I've worked with so many, and I want to reiterate that from earlier. I've worked with so many great people over the years in different capacities, and it's been so cool to see them, particularly after I've gone, move on and do bigger and better things as well. It's just been a lot of fun, and obviously there's people I haven't cast with as well. The European team kind of came around right after I left, so I missed out on working with a lot of people like yourself and Ben and Jamie Boyd and things like that. So there really is no way to pick. I think I'm just grateful for everyone for tolerating me in their time there. I know sometimes I'd always bring something a little zany to it as well, but I loved working with everyone. And even though sometimes you have off days, the point of it being a team is that you lift each other up. Obviously, I know he's asked the question. I had so much fun casting with Joe. We did some games in London Worlds together, and they were just phenomenal. So it's a bit of everyone. I think it really depends on what tournament I'm reminiscing about at that given moment.
Yeah, you're so right. I think it's a complementary game as well, isn't it? You bring a slightly different energy depending on the caster that you're paired with.
Yeah.
So very difficult question to answer. And Joe, I'm not sure if you're expecting Adam to answer that directly, but that's the best you're going to get. No, I think it's a very good answer as it is. So thank you very much for all your questions there. If you'd like to submit a question for a future guest on Chazingdra Chats, at Chazingdra is the place to find the call-outs for questions that I post on X and Blue Sky. I'd love to hear what you'd love to hear. Sometimes Instagram as well. Okay then, Adam. We've heard a lot about you up to now, but what's next for you?
It really is just keep going with this production thing. I've been pretty clear with a lot of people. I want to grow in it. And I've done a couple other shows. Originally, I thought it was just going to be just Pokemon stuff, and that would be the only sort of thing I'd do for it. And then weirdly enough, I ended up working for another client in late last year, and I was sort of deciding I really, really liked it. It really excited me. So I do just want to keep doing more of that. I want to grow within that space and learn other people's roles. I don't hide this, and I don't think it offends anyone if I say it. The ultimate goal would be to be the director of the video game stream, to be able to step up to that. And I know there's a lot of people way more experienced in the sort of line than me, but I'll wait and I'll keep doing the work because I'd love to sort of bring that vision to the video game or the trading card game, obviously, but to get back to where I started, I think would be really, really cool.
Wow, that's fascinating to hear. And I mean, you were talking before about how you're uniquely placed in the role that you're doing now, and then director of video game streams. That again, essentially. So, best of luck to you on that journey, Adam. Now, final question for you. Looking back from now, as operating the graphics on trading card game streams, having been a video game caster all the way back to the young Adam who really wanted that Weedle in their copy of Pokemon Blue, what advice would you give to that younger you?
The biggest one is just keep going. I think in a lot of cases, I've reached points where I could have done something different, and I think that something different would have been akin to giving up. I don't think it's truly giving up, but it would have been in that way. I kept going when I wanted to be a caster and I saw other people getting picked up. I kept trucking when I wasn't sure if I was even going to stay in the country. And I think I'm glad I kept going after 2022 Worlds as well. That gave me another year to work with amazing people, do more amazing things, like going to Australia for the Oceania International Championships. I'm glad I did that. And there's been times as well, in the operation side, where I've really struggled with something going wrong. And I used to get really, really flustered and frustrated and almost want to down tools for a minute. But I had to just put my head down and keep going with what you're doing. Find what you're passionate about and throw yourself into it. Because there's nothing worse than just doing stuff because you feel like you need to, or do things because you want to. I wish I discovered competitive games earlier. I wish I discovered new card games earlier. And I always feel like I've sort of missed time with them. So that's a big thing. Just keep going and throw yourself at the things you love. And I'm grateful to see that there's still people in Pokemon doing that. The new casters who come through, they're just completely going for it all the time. And I really do like that. So that would be the main thing to pass on to a younger me and hopefully everyone around me as well.
Well, I was going to say it's really, really wise advice that we could all stand to benefit from. And it's interesting as well because you said before we were talking about how you did have that community in your secondary school where you were playing Pokemon, unashamedly so, but the fact that you would still advise yourself, just even earlier, just don't even have any qualms about what's cool right now. Just do what you want to do and make those inroads. And it's got you in such a fantastic position. So thank you so much, Adam. And the chat does not end there because we'll now be getting into Adam Dorricott's Rapidash round. 15 or so minutes of bonus questions that Adam hasn't prepared for. Quick fire questions, and I know it's a question on everyone's lips. We will be diving into it. Would Adam ever consider returning to casting? Also, hidden talents, fun facts that Adam has that, as of yet, unrevealed. Dream dinner party guests that Adam would look into inviting over. Questions like that. If you want to get to know Adam that a little bit better, then hop over to my Patreon, which is linked below, where you can also support me as a creator. Fundamentally, really appreciate the fact that you've watched or listen to this episode in its entirety. But if you want to go a little bit even further beyond the surface, then you can find us over on the Patreon linked below. Adam, thanks so much for joining me on the show. It's been so fascinating to get a bit of a deeper dive into you, especially now that you're less in the public Pokemon eye. And I know that lots of people will have taken a lot away from this episode, so thank you.
I know, thank you for having me on. I'm glad, people can learn something from it. Playing Pokemon is still secretly cool.
Not secretly.
No, it's just
increasingly cool. Not secretly. It's just cool. It's just cool. Thanks so much, Adam. If people want to keep up with you online, where can they find you?
I'm dabbling in the blue sky now. So I've got the Dozzle over on there. It's still warming up. I'm still getting sort of used to it, but I think now I'm going to have to put some more time in on it. To help that one grow instead of other platforms.
Blue Sky. Find Dozzle over on there. And now time for a little bit of socials and YouTube promotion from this side of things. Once more, everybody, if you've enjoyed, please do like and subscribe. Really does go such a long way. And drop a comment too, because Adam, as with all my guests, has given us so much food for thought. We'd love to know if any of Adam's dream team picks time with any of the Pokemon you would choose for your own dream teams. Let us know. Plenty more episodes of the podcast on the channel too. I've got a broad range of guests, and not just competitive too, and not just in the video game, trading card game, Go, Pokemon Unite, as well as influencers, content creators, shiny hunters, the works. There's bound to be something for everyone, so do check out the range on offer. Use the hashtag 6Pokemon1LifeStory to spread the word about the show. And also on the channel, I stream competitively, casually, including shiny hunting, as well as challenge runs. I make silly Pokemon comedy skits, I vlog events I cast. I'm currently working on a pretty unique EYC video. Got my socials linked below too, at Chazingdra, Blue Sky, X, Instagram, and TikTok. Hop into my Discord community, Chazindra's Chocolate Factory. Come and join the merry folk. That's linked below. Alright then, Adam, with that being said, it's time to get into your Rapidash round. So if you're not joining us over on Patreon for that, then it's goodbye from Adam.
It's goodbye from him, goodbye from me. Which way do we do that one?
Very nice. And it is indeed goodbye from me. See you next time on Chazingdra Chats, where there'll be another 6 Pokemon, 1 Life Story. So then, Adam, how are you feeling about these bonus questions?
The preview I got of them I'm a little nervous about, but
right.
we'll truck on.
You'll be okay, you'll be okay. I think this is also a question that came in from plenty of people for your community questions. Obviously, you can answer this and define this in whichever way you want, but would you ever consider a return to the casting?